This is the Builders Business Success Podcast for builders who want to attract more quality clients who aren't price-focused, eliminate cash flow pressure, and get paid for every quote. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Builders Business Success Podcast, the podcast that's designed specifically for builders to overcome the common problems and costly challenges that pretty much every builder faces. Super pumped for this week's show. Got a really top guy that I'm talking to. He's a great friend of mine. His name's Dan Bolton. If you've seen the Builders Business Black Belt ads anywhere on Facebook or Instagram, that is his fault. So we're going to get him on and you'll be able to blame him for the plethora of me turning up everywhere on your Facebook feed and so forth. We've also got a great book review, something that I think will make a profound difference to you. This book couldn't have come out soon enough, particularly if you're interested in marketing for your building business. Of course, we're going to have the good old what did I say? And I did say something worthwhile in one of our conversations today, so I'll be sharing that with you. Finally, we're introducing a new segment. It's a simple Q&A because we're getting plenty of questions coming through and I'd like to answer some of them. The cool thing about you asking questions is everybody gets to hear the answer. Everyone learns faster, makes faster progress. So if you've got questions, make sure you send them in. I'll tell you where to send them later on in the show. Okay, it's time to talk to my buddy Dan Bolton. Now, Dan Bolton is over in New Zealand. I first met him in a coaching group, so I'm part of a coaching group. My coach is a business coach who coaches business coaches, and Dan was in that group. We got to know each other in that group, and now he helps us, the Builders Business Black Belt, with our marketing. He is a super intelligent guy. He really knows his stuff. And he's going to share a whole bunch of really cool things about the common mistakes that builders make with their marketing. He's going to talk about how important it is to have a niche and a whole bunch of other things. So let's listen in on our conversation with Mr. Dan Bolton. So folks, I want to introduce you to an amazing chap, and his name's Dan. There he is there. And the reason that I wanted to introduce you to him, if in any way, shape or form you have found Builders Business Black Belt and you find the ads annoying and repetitive and they just seem to be everywhere, that's not my fault. That's his fault. So I just wanted to put a name, a face to the name. So Dan and his amazing crew, Thomas and Logan and a few others, we've been working with them for a little while, and they've really made a massive difference to our marketing, our positioning, our messaging. We're helping a lot more builders now, and that's really the reason that I wanted to talk to Dan. So, mate, thanks for talking with us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, one of the things that I just want you to real quickly address is the messaging and positioning, or perhaps it might even be the mindset for builders in relation to what they put out for the people to consume, that when they're trying to attract a new customer. Because one of the things that I've found, you go to 100 websites for builders, and the word we, our, and us dominates the website. All they do is talk about themselves, and they never really answer or address a question that one of their prospects might be thinking about or staying up late worrying about, which gets them to go, oh, these people understand me. Tell me how important that is in relation to starting to attract the right people to your business, instead of talking about yourself and how good you are and all that.
Established in 1983, my father started the business. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well, look, if someone's listening and they are struggling with marketing, like, they're definitely not alone, right? It's like most businesses get to a point, building industry is no different, where you hit a ceiling where you've been growing through word of mouth, referral, and basically your marketing efforts up until now has just been hope marketing, right? I do this and I hope it's going to work, right? I do the brochure, I did the website. I don't know if it has any impact whatsoever, but the person charging me $5,000 told me that it's going to be awesome. Maybe once upon a time it was the yellow pages, and that's totally typical. The challenge though is that breaking through the that kind of ceiling that a lot of industries have, a lot of businesses have, building is no different, requires you to be really clear. Like if you think of the difference between like that line and getting past that line in your business and actually having marketing that attracts the ideal clients, is really around clarity. And one of the biggest things is clarity around how you were different and why someone should work with you over Joe Blogs down the street, building and co, whatever it might be, who might even happen to be cheaper or have a bigger team or have been around longer. And if we're playing the game of, well, we're, just as like the same as everyone else, but our website is fancier, we're going to lose that one. And so eventually we are just going to attract the friend of a friend. But if we want to break through, we really need to get clear on like, what is it that we specialize in, or who do we help and why, or what is it that makes us different or better than our competitors? And when you can clarify that and make it really razor sharp, so that when someone hears about your building business, they know exactly what that represents, you get into a really, really powerful place where you can start to attract the right customers consistently and predictably. And this is not just true for businesses, I'm reading your shirt, the builders business back up, builders, but this is like real estate agents, dentists, chiropractors, it's every industry, but especially in the building industry, it's really figuring out like, what is it that makes you different? And then how can you simplify that and clarify that so that that becomes your marketing message and your point of difference?
Yeah. Can you speak to niching? And I know when I talk about niching or when I have conversations about niching, people sometimes confuse that to you've got to decide this is the only sort of work that I will do.
We only build houses with screwdrivers.
Yeah.
It's our niche.
Yes. No. But to me, it's not about choosing, okay, I'm only going to build on sloping blocks or I'm only going to build 2-story whatevers. It's not about what I'm going to do. In my world, it's about if I narrow my message so I'm really only talking to a particular type of person. What seems to have happened for me by doing that is I get inquiry from the left of that and the right of that. But if I tried to put a message out that attracted from the left to the right, that gap there, it's crickets, I get nothing. What's that all about?
Well, I think one of the most important things to kind of figure out is like, am I going to be a generalist or a specialist? And again, this is one of those universal truths that it's like in the field of medicine, you've got generalists, right? Like a general physician. Yeah. And so you might go to them for the rash on your knee, or you've cut your arm.
Glad you said knee.
You're going in for a checkup. Yeah. But when you've got a disease, a serious disease, you're not going to go to a generalist. Yeah. You're going to seek out a specialist, and you're going to try and find someone who's the best in their field at what they do, so you can get the expert help. Yeah. And that's really when it comes to like building businesses, is it's like, do you want to be the generalist or the specialist? Now, the mistake that people make is they think that the specialist is foolishly turning away all this work, right? Because if you're a generalist, you can do anything, which means that like you've got way more opportunity than the specialist is like over here. But actually what happens is it's the difference between in marketing what we call blue oceans and red oceans. And so in a red ocean, it's a bloodbath, right? Everyone's competing. It's dog eat dog, or shark eat shark. It's saturated. There's so much competition because everyone is trying to be there. The blue ocean is this space. It's where no one maybe has been before, or where it's much less crowded. And so in the building industry, it's when you start to go like, we only build $1 million homes plus on the beach or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden what happens is that even though you're turning down houses under $1 million that aren't on the beach, all of a sudden you become the company that's sought after for people who are wanting to build $1 million plus home on the beach. Yeah. And this is what happened even within our business, is that once upon a time we launched the agency, we did everything for everybody. And I mean that. We were building websites. I was managing social media for a local supermarket. I was running Facebook ads for like a vehicle financing place. And it was hard. Attracting clients was really challenging because when you help everyone, you attract a lot of people that aren't really ideal clients. And I know you talk about this a lot, is there's a big difference between someone who is wanting you to work for them and someone you want to work with, right? Like, there's a big difference between that. Yeah. And so we transitioned from there to really just focusing in on helping a specific type of coaching consultant solve a very specific problem. And since then, Our agency is grown substantially, but our life and our business has got a lot simpler because now we just build the business around solving ideal clients. And that's what I think a lot of building businesses can have, is that it doesn't just clarify their marketing. The whole business can actually get much better when you go, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, we're just doing this.
Yeah. And the results for the customer, I think they're significantly better. I mean, our experiences having been generalist small business coaches, and I must put my hand up and confess that I thought small business was a niche.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which I think is like under 100 employees.
Yeah.
I think that's the technical definition of a small business.
We might have had at one stage we had a bank and a TV station and a radio station and a hairdresser and a motor mechanic and a transport company or whatever. And here's the thing though, all of their problems were the same. They were all the same. But because they were all in different niches or different industries, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe, the radio station would say, oh, but we're different because we've got deadlines. And it's like, oh, yeah, of course, I didn't think about that. You're the only business around that has deadlines, of course, stupid me. But my point is that we were doing a great job as small business coaches for our members, but since we created Builders Business Black Belt, and our crosshairs are generally on a husband and wife run custom home building business. They fill up the majority of our seats in our membership. The speed at which we're able to help businesses grow is between 400 and 500% faster. And I can guarantee you that I'm not 400 or 500% better. I'm just not. Right. It's because people see that this is the solution that's been specifically built for them, and they'll tend to implement it rather than going, how do I figure out how to make this work for me? But question, and I think this is super important, what's in your mind, what's the difference between marketing and advertising?
That's a good question. I think the way that I see marketing, and this is one of those things that depending on what kind of marketer you talk to, it could mean 101 different things. Like I talked to someone who ran ads for Apple. The way they ran ads leading up to the launch of an iPhone was the only KPI they were shooting for was spend $100,000 a day, because they knew that turned into X amount of eyeballs, and they thought if we have X amount of eyeballs, eventually that's going to turn into sales. I don't do that type of marketing. So really the biggest thing is you've got brand awareness and you've got direct response, right? And so brand awareness is marketing that you really can't track, right? It's the billboard, it's the sign on the back of the bus. It's stuff that you hope, back to that hope marketing, that you hope is going to move the needle. But actually, if gun to your head, did it make a difference? Did it grow your business? Chances are you have got no way of tracking it. You just assume that if your name is out there, it's going to be good news. And what we really focus on is direct response, trackable, accurate, accountable advertising that you can say, I put $1 into the machine of Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, or Google, and I got $5, $10, $15 out. And so those would be the two things that I think are really different in my mind. A lot of local businesses tend to focus more on the brand aspect, and I think they'd be much better off figuring out ways to do direct response, right? It's advertising, or it's marketing funnels that you send people to, and you want them to take action, to call you, to apply, for a info pack or whatever it might be, as opposed to, here's me and my truck and I'm from, you know what I mean? It's like, so those would be the biggest differences for me.
We've had the cameras rolling just in case Mick said something worthwhile. Great news. It happened this week. So let's check out this week's What'd I Say?
I suggest this to anybody. If you're stuck, if you're confused, if you just seem to be going through the motions on a daily basis, and there are things that are in front of you now that were in front of you before and you don't seem to be getting them done, go right back to basics. Right back to basics. What are you putting in your brain, on a regular basis? What videos are you watching? What books are you reading? All of that sort of stuff. And then, are you still challenging yourself with the Dreamcatcher, or are you painting by numbers with the Dreamcatcher? It's got a purpose. The purpose of the Dreamcatcher is to eliminate self-imposed limitations in your thinking. And when you do that, when you start to get rid of some of those self-imposed limitations, you start to see stuff. Like there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. How it works and how people experience it quite often is if let's say you buy a car, all of a sudden you see a whole lot more of those cars on the road. All that's happening is that the reticular activating system, it's almost like a protection mechanism. If we had to notice everything that's going on around us all day, every day, our heads would explode. And so, like, we're talking about this now, but there's something going on right now for those who are sitting on their ass right now on a chair. You didn't notice the weight of your body pressing down on your ass cheeks, but as soon as I said it, you notice it. So that's got really nothing to do with it other than there's that much going on. Everything we see, hear, taste, feel, smell, there's just so much going on. So the reticular activating system's purpose is to allow you to be aware of what is important to you. And so by getting into the dream catcher and really going to town with big goals, the input into your brain is preparing your reticular activating system to look for opportunities to achieve whatever those objectives are. Like, opportunity is just everywhere, particularly now with the whole corona thing. Everybody's thinking has changed, everybody's preferences has changed, everyone's priorities has changed. There's just a massive amount of opportunity. Most people can't see the opportunity. The majority of people can't see the opportunity because what are they putting into their brain? They're putting in doom and gloom and lack and scarcity and fear and loss and all of that. That's what they're putting in there. And so the reticular activating system makes them aware of everything that's going on around them that is evidence to support what they're thinking and feeling. Whereas if you are using the dream catcher, and remember the dream catcher is all about putting stuff in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and imagination. So if you go absolutely crazy regularly with your imagination on amazing stuff, your subconscious starts to become quite comfortable with that, as if you've done it a lot. As if you've been there and done that many, many times. You start to become comfortable with it, which gives you confidence, but it also prepares the reticular activating system to see the opportunity to do what it is that you want to do. And if you're stuck, if you're not moving as fast or in the direction that you want to, it comes back to basics. What are you putting in your brain, and to what level, and to what is the energy you're using to put this stuff in your brain? Like, if it's a massive amount of energy and you're super enthusiastic about it and you're doing it a lot, what's going to happen with your reticular activating system? You're just going to be able to see opportunity after opportunity after opportunity.
Read any good books lately? Well, here's one you should check out.
Okay, in this week's book review, I want to talk to you about the second book that I've listened to. I know it sounds a bit crazy to listen to books, but I prefer to consume them while I'm doing other things. And I've listened to this one multiple times, and it's called Marketing Made Simple. It's a collaboration between Donald Miller and Dr. J. Peterson. And the reason I like to listen is there's an extra bit at the end of the audio book with a conversation between Donald Miller and Dr. J. And it's quite funny, but very, very insightful. So I'd really encourage you to get the Audible version and consume it that way. But why I really like it was I listened to Donald Miller's original book, and it's called Story Brand, and it's a great book. It really helps you to understand the power of putting the same formula that they use in Hollywood movies. So blockbuster movies that really get you to lean into them and get interested and become obsessed with the storyline. And there is a formula to it, and he shares that formula, and he teaches people how to put that into their marketing. So their marketing becomes really magnetic and interesting and powerful for the right people. And if your marketing isn't getting any traction, this could be the book. So this is the follow-up book. Story Brand was great, but you had to work out a whole lot of things. In the Marketing Made Simple book, Donald takes you through step by step the processes you need to go through to figure out what your ideal client's problem is. And they've got plenty, but it's a great process to go through to identify this one problem, the solution to that problem, and then the result. And by getting the answers to those questions, getting clear on that, you can put it all through your marketing, your website, your social posts, all of that sort of stuff. So your message is very, very consistent and it's very powerful. So it is a step-by-step story brand guide for any business, as it says on the cover of the book. I highly recommend you go get a copy of Donald Miller's Marketing Made Simple. It will make a difference to the marketing to your building business. Okay, welcome to the new segment. It's a simple Q&A. And the first question I want to address in this first episode of our Q&A, or our first segment of Q&A, is I've been asked, how do you take a break? How do you take a holiday when you're really busy? Like, you need the holiday because you're really busy, but there's no space to take the holiday. And the answer is quite simple. It's probably not what you want to hear. You want to have some sort of magic formula and me wave my magic wand and fix everything up, but it doesn't work like that. What you need to do is make sure that you schedule in these breaks, and it might be a weekend from time to time. It might be a long weekend from time to time. It might be a week. It might be a few weeks away. But the secret to this, and as challenging as you might find this, is you get your yearly calendar well in advance and you go through with your family and what have you and say, let's take that weekend there or that long weekend, and you schedule them in appropriate spacings up to a year in advance. And I know that there's a whole lot of challenges with scheduling holidays and so forth at this time with the COVID and so forth, but do your very best to at least block out the time, and where possible, make the booking so it happens. Because guess what? You've experienced this, is when you have got a holiday already booked and it's got flights, back in the old days when we used to be able to fly around and go to different countries and what have you, when that was the case and you had a flight booked and it was getting closer and closer and closer, something magical happened and you really got your act together and you started to get stuff done and you met all of the deadlines and you got everything that needed to be done by the time you needed to leave. And so take advantage of that, book them well ahead in advance, and make sure that they happen. And as I say, book things and perhaps arrange it with friends or whatever, so it's going to happen. Don't just sort of tentatively put it in the calendar but not book anything, because by the time it gets there, you're going to go, we're too busy, we can't do it, and there's no commitment there. And it's really important that you do this, because it's like, if you were sprinting as hard as you could, at some stage you're going to break down. If I got you to hold a fist and you squeezed it as hard as you possibly could, and we had some sort of grip strength meter that you were holding on to, after a little while, the strength in your hand would start to disappear. You need to rest, and then you need to apply the pressure, and then you rest, and then you apply the pressure. And by doing that, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. But how most people run their businesses is squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and they just keep holding on, but their grip strength gets weaker and weaker. They experience pain and cramp. Like, this is a really great analogy for how most people run their business. So it's not about how do I take a holiday when I'm really busy. It's schedule them ahead. You're going to be busy anyway, but by scheduling it, making a commitment to it, you'll be able to meet that deadline, get organised, and have that rest, recreation, revitalisation. And when you come back, you'll have more energy, make better decisions, and get more done. It's a much better way of doing it. I really wanted to help the viewer and the listener understand or perhaps clear up their mind about really what marketing is. In fact, Black Belt, we kind of almost banned the word marketing and we talk about attract, because we say, well, okay, what we've got to do is say what sort of projects and what sort of people are we trying to attract? And the most important question is, are we attractive? You know, and it's not just about signs and ads and all of that sort of stuff. It's about the experience and the processes and the communication and the teamwork and all of that sort of stuff that creates the customer experience that contributes to you being attractive to the type of people you're trying to attract. So it's a lot more than that. But the other thing, and before we press the go button, we were talking about your background not being in marketing, and I responded, I said, awesome. You know, the results are the results that we're getting with you guys. It's just, I'm over the moon. But in the past, I've been approached by people who have a business card who says marketing consultant, and they suggest that I should spend this many tens of thousands of dollars because I'm going to get in front of X amount of millions of eyeballs or whatever it might be.
Yeah, right.
And a couple of times I've done this. I've said to them, this sounds fantastic. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to open up my books to you, and you're going to see exactly how much business we're creating right now. I want you to put the best marketing project, process, whatever, together that you can, and money isn't an object. Don't worry about that because I'm not paying for any of it. You are, but obviously you believe in your product, and whatever you produce, all I want is 5% of the profitability. You can have 95% of the additional profitability this marketing campaign generates. It's a great deal. Like, rather than me just paying you this small amount of money for this, you know, are you in? You know, and all you've got is the old bar doors going as they run away.
What's that? I'm getting a call. I got to go.
Yeah. And my cynicism also says that a lot of marketers will sell you marketing, and it's all about how many eyeballs and all that sort of stuff, because it actually can't be measured. You know, if the phone's not ringing, or if there's no way of having a return on investment key performance indicator on the money you're spending, they can just make it look like it's working where it's not. So
yeah, and that's where it comes to the strategy versus tactics. Even with the best tracking processes on the planet, even with digital marketing, it is really hard to go, this ad produced X amount of dollars, because sometimes what happens if a client ends up working with you, but they were in your funnel or your world and being marketed to for 15 months or 5 months or 5 weeks. It's hard to go, here's the ad that did that. However, so that's from a tactic perspective, right? It's hard to go like this one little piece contributed everything. From a strategy perspective, I think that's where people need to be looking at their social media or looking at their Facebook ad spend or the Google AdWords, wherever it is. And overarching, is the strategy accountable? Meaning, like, with the money that we're investing in this, or even just the time and the energy, can we see this as moving the needle? Like, more leads are coming through the door, or more people are calling us, or more customers are ending up working with us. And I think it's a huge opportunity for a lot of building business owners to be looking at that and going, if we were to just pivot a little bit and maybe away from let's just put, stuff out there for eyeballs and go, like, how can we spend 10 minutes a day on social media and figure out a unique thing that we can kind of share. Like, I'll share one story that's related to the housing industry with real estate, which is real estate agents. I don't know if this is the same in Australia. In New Zealand, very, very classic real estate agent social media strategy is this. They sell a house, then they get in front of the sold sign. It's very awkward. The family's there and they just go like, sold. And then the caption is something along the lines of, my name's Dan. So it'd be something along the lines of, congratulations to so-and-so who just managed to set a street record. Team Dan is very impressed with da-da-da. If you need help, give me a call, right? And it's very predictable, very bland. And the family looks like, some extras into like an advertising promo who are just like, and I'll tell you one instance that we pivoted this for a client that we're working with about 2 years ago. And what happened, I told him this, I said, real estate agents typically have very, very stale marketing. Here's what I want you to do. You just sold this house and it set a street record. Is that right? He's like, yeah. And I was like, I want you to share a story about that sale. And I want you to not make yourself look like the hero, because that's what every real estate agent would love to do, but instead focus it in on the family. And so he literally kind of did a social media post. It wasn't a novel by any means, but it was just highlighting the hard work and the preparation that this family took while juggling 3 kids and a full-time job to get this house on the market and set a street record. The whole thing looked like they were the heroes. They were the stars of the show. And he was just highlighting their hard work and their dedication to putting this house on the market. Now, obviously, anyone reading into it knows he was the one who sold it, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was 2 days after, the neighbors reached out to him and said, "Hey, we saw the post that you did about so-and-so. We really like kind of what you are all about and the result that you got for them. Can you come and, do appraisal for us?" And he ended up selling the house and making $30,000 from one social media post. Now, would it have happened like that if he had, got them in a photo and give Ryan maybe it would have. But my point being, it doesn't take that much more effort or time to be different, to put in a little bit more effort. And really the secret is making people feel something, right? If you think about, like, we're inherently consciously and subconsciously selfish people. So when we're scrolling through social media, the question we're asking ourselves is, what is in it for me, right? We're not going to invest 60 seconds into a video if we can't see, like, whether it's going to be funny, whether it's going to make us feel happy, whether it's like intriguing, it's creating curiosity with us. And I think our social media should be the same way, that it actually makes people feel something and it very quickly answers the question, what's in it for me? And maybe it's going to make them feel good. Maybe they're going to learn how to preserve their roof that's falling apart, or learn, the 10 benefits of working with you, whatever it might be. It doesn't take that much more effort and time to be more thoughtful in the marketing we put out to get a much, much better result.
Yeah. Yeah. Great story. And it really, we've kind of brought it right back into a neat circle from what we started talking about at the start. Is when you are positioning yourself, we really need to be talking about the fears, frustrations, wants and aspirations of the people that we're trying to attract. They're not really interested in you, your story, whether you're Australian, family owned, all of this sort of stuff. I know it sounds pretty mercenary, but the bottom line is that they're not. So don't use up the real estate on your website talking about that stuff. Make your customer the hero, is just fantastic advice. So just to before we bail, from your experience, what would be sort of the first 1 to 3 actions, steps you would suggest a builder take to start to create an attract strategy that would start to work for them in the future? And I say in the future because the one thing I've learned is it's the long game. It's not one post, one result. So I better make it a good post. To me, it's like you've got to be there all the time for a while before people even bother looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there are a couple of things. Like let's go big picture and then we'll kind of break it down to the macro. Big picture, I think a lot of building business owners need to decide that just because they can do something doesn't mean they should do something. So if you're a skilled craftsman and you've learned how to build fences and decks and houses and renovations, and you know how to build the 3-story $1 million property and the $300,000 unit, just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should. And so I think there's a decision to be made by a lot of building business owners to go, am I going to be the generalist forever? Am I going to be the, do everything for everyone type builder? Or are we going to become focused and become the specialists in one area? And when you do that, you surprisingly don't get less work, you get more. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say also from that is there are a couple of really easy social media wins. If you see the trend on Pinterest, right? People love looking at renovations, or they love looking at befores and after. They look like an empty plot of land, and then all of a sudden there are walls up, and all of a sudden the roof's on, and all of a sudden the bathroom is renovated, and whatever it might be. And so whether your projects are small or big, I would also be bringing people along the journey. I think social media is a great platform for that. And I think also whether or not there's kind of 2 aspects of this, right? There's value that's either entertaining or educational. And I would say the entertaining piece is like the progress of a house being built. But are there ever tips that you can share? Are there ever educational pieces that you can do on kind of the 3 things to look for when you're wanting to remodel your house, or the 3 mistakes you see people make when they set out to build a first house or buy their first home, or whatever it might be, whatever is specific to kind of your ideal clients. The third thing I'd be is thinking about is figuring out how can you be running Facebook ads, even $10 a day, to people who are your ideal clients within your area. I would be working really hard to become famous in kind of your hyper local market.
Yeah.
And so the beautiful thing about the internet now is that you can go on YouTube right now and you can search how to run a Facebook ad, or even better, because YouTube is so big and there's so many people on it. You could probably search how to run a Facebook ad for builders or construction company, whatever it might be. And you're going to get a lot of ideas and a lot of really simple steps to take to implement that strategy into your business. Facebook ads at some point are going to expire and they're not going to be as effective as they are now. But the good news is they're still working super well. I would get in on them while you can.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Mate, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time and your knowledge. I'm having an absolute hoop working with you. It was great to get you on the show and love to get you back. And I always, if I want to get somebody back, I'll always ask them on the show because there's less chance of refusal if it's on the show rather than asking you later on. So, would you be prepared to come back another time?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in.
That's the answer I was hoping for. So, perfect. And love to be talking to you more about that because it's a really important part of a building business. In fact, I think it's the most important part because it flows on to, the people you're talking to. If you're constantly talking to people who aren't qualified, they're not the right people, it just does your head in. And if you end up taking on the wrong people, well, then the build is very unenjoyable and not profitable and stressful. And get the right people in the first place, everything else becomes a whole lot easier. So thank you very much.
That's right.
And we will be talking to you again in the not too distant future.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what is the big takeaway that I think that you should take from this episode? For me, it is the Donald Miller thing, because it can help you in so many ways, is go through the Marketing Made Simple book and follow the process about how to identify what your ideal client's number one problem is. And then what is the solution to that problem that you provide? And then what is the result that your clients get by applying that solution? What will they experience? That needs to be reflected everywhere on your website. It needs to be reflected everywhere on the content that you create for all of your social platforms and marketing assets. Super important that it is consistent, because here's the thing. How this works is that someone will take action when they are thinking about their problem. They're experiencing their problem, and at that same time, your marketing message appears in front of their face. Now, how do we do that? How do we make our marketing message appear in front of their face just at that perfect time? Well, the simple secret to this is it's there all of the time. It's just that they can't see it. So you've got to have a quantity of this message, and you are far better off repeating the same message over and over and over and over again rather than putting different messages out, because then it's much more difficult for that magical moment to happen, for them to be thinking about that exact problem when your solution appears. But if you're putting up that same problem, solution, result, information in your message over and over and over, when that magic moment happens, your information is there. People will then start to take action. That was meant to be. That was amazing. I found it just at the right place. So that's my takeaway for this week's episode of Builders Business Success Podcast. So that's it for the show. I'm sure, as always, and we're starting to get a whole bunch of questions, that you have questions. So there's a couple of things you can do. First one is, if you would like to have me help you with your questions or with your challenges with your building business, all you need to do is schedule a call. I'm more than happy to jump on a phone call with you, talk with you about it, and point you in the right direction. How do you do that? Well, underneath this video, there is a button to schedule a call. Hit the button, it'll take you to a small form. It just tells me a little bit about your business so I can be a bit prepared. And then after you submit that form, it takes you to my calendar and you can select the time and day that suits you. We'll jump on a phone. We'll roll the sleeves up and help you with your problem. Now, if you're listening on the audio-only version of this, all you need to do is navigate to buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au and you'll be able to see right in the middle of the page there the schedule a call button. If you've got questions that you want to send in via email, it is mick@buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au. Not very difficult to remember. That's mick@buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've got a lot out of it. I hope I get to talk to you in person in the not too distant future. And we'll be back with another episode of Builders Business Success Podcast. Before you know it, I'm Mick Hawes, Builders Business Black Belt. That is it. Bye for now.
Okay, that's the podcast. If you have a question or want to know how Mick can help with your building business, email your request to mick@buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au. Do it now.